So in this video, what we are going to do is actually output some product data into our home page here. So on our product page, we are just going to loop through an array of data right now. This is some dummy data that I have prepped, and we are just going to loop through this and output some data with product information, product images. And for now, that's what going to sit here until we actually create our database with our API. And so let's go ahead, and in your GitHub repo, you should still have that resources folder. And in there, what we need to do is we need to find the images folder and the products.js folder. So for the product.js file, we want to drag that into our front end where our source folder is. So this should sit right where app.js sits, and we'll drag that in here. So if I open that up in VS Code, this is the file here. So all it is, it just an array of data, and this is supposed to represent what an API call should return for products here. And so we have an array of products. We have our ID, our title, and we also have a relative path for the images. So we need to drag these images into here so they will actually work with the associated products here. So that's all we are doing here is just an array called product. So we export it, and we are going to use this in a second. So if I go into my resources folder in front end, I need to go back into the public folder. So where index.html sits, and we are going to drag in the images folder in there, so I can close these out, and we are going to open up our code editor here, and I am going to go back into public, and here within the images folder, so we can see images like the airports, the Alexa, camera, and all the images. So these are associated with the product. So now we can actually start using this and start outputting it on our home page here. So like I mentioned earlier, we have our components folder, but we also want to create a folder for our pages here. So even though they are all components, technically we do want another folder for pages like our home, page, our product page. So let's go ahead and create that, and we want to call that screens. So I will call that screens, and we'll create a new file, and we are going to call this home screen dot js. So we'll just capitalize the H and S here, and we'll create that file. And let's go ahead and let's do React functional component exported here, RFC. So we are going to create our home screen, and within our home screen product, let's just write some kind of title here, and we'll just give the title name in h1 tag. So we have our title, and we need to go ahead and go back to folders here and import products. So we can import that by just we are going into that file and we want the product array, and we also need to import some React bootstrap components. So from React bootstrap, let's go ahead and import row and column. So we are going to use this row to create a row just underneath our title here, and so we are going to create the row, and in this row we are just going to map through each product in our products array, and then we are just going to output a column and some information about each product here. So we can just do products.map, and we are going to use an arrow function. So we are going to access each product here, an arrow function, and then on each iteration we want to create a new column. So later on we'll actually have a product component and some information about that product with an image. But for now, let's just go ahead and output just some information right now so we can see it. So we'll just do product and then we can access whatever attribute we want. So we'll just do product dot name. So let's get rid of that right here. And I'm also seeing an issue right here. So bootstrap was misspelled. That's going to give us bug later if we don't fix that. And now what I want to do is actually make this column responsive. So if you understand the bootstrap grid system, you will understand that the grid system has 12 columns. So what I am saying here is when the screen is small, so when we are on our phone, we want the column to be full width. Now when the screen is medium size, and I know that's relative, but we are going to take up 6 columns. 6 column of that grid system. So technically we are going to have 2 columns. And then when we are on a large screen, we are going to set that to 4 and on an extra large screen. So we are going to take up 3. So we are just making that responsive with all the screen, and now that we need to do is we need to take in this home screen into app.js. So we are going to add that, we are going to first import it and we are going to just take that home screen. So that home screen component. So home screen, and let's replace footer here. Now we are going to into the screens folder instead of the components folder. So we need to change this right here into screens, and we are going to put this component within this container. So later on all of our pages will sit within this container, and we'll create a URL routing system to where depending on what page we are supposed to be on. So that's the component that's going to render. But for now we are just going to output that here, and we have our home screen component as we are looping through each product, and we are going to get one bug here I want to show you. But first I want to show you what that looks like in the console, and then we'll fix it. So if we go back to our website, we can see all of our products being output. So we are seeing them. Everything's looks good. Now one issue here comes up with whenever we are mapping or we are outputting products through a loop. Uh, so if you understand React, you will understand that we need an attribute called key. And that needs to be unique to every single item in that iteration. So let's go ahead and fix that. And this needs to be unique to each item. So we'll just do key, and the one attribute that's unique within our product is the ID attribute. So if you look at this, each ID is going to be unique, and that's just called underscore ID. And as the product changes, we are not going to have a repeating ID, so we can use this attribute. If you get that error, look it up if you want to understand what that means. But once we add that, we are going to see that error goes away. We should not see that anymore. So if I refresh that, there we go. Now everything is looking good, and this does not look too good as far as the output. So we are going to start fixing this and actually creating the product component. So we will jump back into our home screen here. I just want to get rid of this product name. So we actually want to start using the product component, so we haven't created it yet. So what going to do is actually start using it, and then we'll create it in a second. So the product component as a prop, we want to pass in the product object. So we want to pass that in so we can access this in this component, and we also need to import this component. So this component is going to be imported from components, and we'll go back to files here, and then we'll just do components and then product, and we'll pass in. So pass in the name here or the actual component. And now within components we can create the product component. So we'll just do product.js. So let's create the component. So this is going to be a React functional component. And also I want to import from React Bootstrap the card component. So if you don't know what this is, I would recommend just following along, and then if you want to know details, go ahead and look into the documentation. But this is just a UI component, and we are going to change this div to card. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some class names or some classes to this card, and so this component, so I want to go ahead and add in my this 3, that's going to add some margin with the amount of 3, and I'm also going to add some padding. So we'll do padding p by 3 p3, and I want the borders to this card to be rounded. So if I just add a name here, so we'll no longer actually see the product's title because we are passing in the component. And right now there is nothing unique about the component. So if I look at it, here we go, this is our styling. So we add some margin between, added some padding, and you can see these rounded corners. So that's the card component that React Bootstrap gives us access to. So let's actually start passing in some real data. So the first thing is I can access this product object right here by just doing something like uh, we can we can do props dot product and then actually access the details. But I'm just going to destructure that so we can destructure it and access the product directly, so we don't need props anymore. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a link tag. So we want to link to our product page. Now later on we will rectify this, so we are not going to use a tag, but we are going to use the React router link. But for now let's just go ahead and just do href, and we are just going to use some backticks here, and we'll just say forward slash product. So this is the page we wanted to take you to, and we'll just do product underscore id, and so we are going to pass in the unique product id. This way when we click on it we know where to send the user. Now in here what we want to do is create this link around an image. So this card attribute or this card component actually has an attribute image here. So we can just do card dot image. This is kind of like the image tag. So this is not the official HTML image tag, but this is the way this component lets us do it, and we can just actually take this out and we'll put a forward slash here. And for the source we can just do source and we'll just do product dot image. So I think that's what the tag or the attribute was called. So let's go ahead and just test that. If I save it, we should be able to see that information. So there we go. We have our product pages, and when we click on them, you can see that it's taken us to product, and then the product ID. So right now it's technically not taking us anywhere because we haven't really completed this or rectified this yet. So it doesn't load up a new component. But this is why we use the backticks, so we can pass in the variables of the ID and then the actual product ID. So let's complete this component here. So we want to create a body for the product details. So we'll just do car.body, and this is where all the details like the price, the product title, and the other details description will set. And within here I actually want to take this link and we'll paste that down here. And instead of the card image I want to create some title here, so we can just do card.title. And now within the title we are just going to use a strong tag. So strong, and we are going to pass in the product name. So we'll just do product dot name, and in the title here we can just do as an attribute, and we are going to say use this as a div here. So we'll just do as div. So we are going to wrap that, and now below that we can use car dot text here. So just underneath our link is still within the card body. So it closes up right here. Let's just do card dot text, and for some reason it is throwing off this card component. So it's auto completing that. So we will fix that. Make sure that it stays as card. And this is card text, and that's also supposed to be lowercase. That doesn't look right. So within card text here, we can we trying to do is we are trying to show the number of reviews that we have. So let's go ahead and let's just say as div here. So we want to make this into a div, and in here let's go ahead and just create another div, and I want to create some padding here. So we'll create a div, and we'll just set the class name, and we'll just use margin. So my, and then 3 for the amount of margin, and inside of here we just want to access the product rating. So we want to do products rating. So we want to know the overall ratings of the product. So product dot rating, and then we are just going to say from, and then the amount of reviews that we have. So we are just going to say product dot num reviews, and remember these are all attributes in that product dot json file or product dot js file. So go ahead and just take a look at that if you want to understand these attributes. So we have product dot rating from the number of reviews, and let's take a look here, and we are linking up that title. So that's also changing, and we can see 4.5 reviews or 4.5 star out of 12 reviews, which will customize in a second. So now underneath here we just want to add the title or the actual price. So we'll do card dot text again and again. This we'll just remove that, make sure it's good up here, and in card text we want to say as h3. So we want to make this an h3 tag. So we'll do h3, and in here we just want to use the dollar sign, and that not the variable, that's actually going to be text for the dollar sign. And we'll just do product dot price. So let's take a look here. Let's fix that, and now we should be good for the card component up until now. And so let's see how everything looks, and we got the price So that checks out. Everything looks pretty good here. So in the next video, what we are going to do is create a star rating component, and we are going to make uh, that into its own component, because we want to reuse that in the actual product page, and we want to be able to actually see the amount of stars. So we'll have 5 stars, and then depending on what the overall ratings of that product is, uh, so that's going to be the amount of stars that are going to be filled out in yellow, and then the rest are going to be uh, grayed out. So if you have 3 stars out of 5, you are going to see 3 stars filled up in yellow, and then the rest grayed out. So we are going to take care of that in next video.